Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Now, what was interesting is when we have a call every week, Fred and Justin and I, and we talk about who's coming up on their show and on and on. And I said, Lisa Dietlin, philanthropy expert, great for the end of the year. She has tons to say on the topic. She's incredible. She's a great guest. And he went, she wrote a book called I Got Hit by a Taxi, But You Look Run Over. And I said, that's because she actually was hit by a cab. And it really, it altered your life.
It did. It really did.
Yeah. Tell us what happened.
So, it's one of those situations. There we go. I have to use a little muscle. It's one of those situations where you know you need to change your life, but you keep thinking if I dig deeper, it'll get better and I can fix it. And I had known that for a few years, realizing I wasn't happy doing what I was doing and knew what I wanted to do. But it took a taxi hitting me going 35 miles an hour in the loop of Chicago. I took a ride on the hood, as you know, Hannah. I was on the hood backwards, careening down toward Lower Wacker, thinking two things. How long is this going to last? And how am I getting off the hood of the car?
Don't let go.
Normally, I'm a fun girl, but I don't do that.
It literally, when we were on the call, and Hannah says, and she goes, no, literally, she got hit by a taxi. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. And then I flew off the front of the car and knew I was okay until he drove over me for the first time.
For the first time. Isn't this a great story?
Then he backed over me for the second time. And I'm here to talk.
I literally.
Brad, I think you woke up.
I'm speechless right now.
Lisa, I almost just didn't know when to pipe in, and I'm listening, and this vision is going through my head. But I do have although I'm giggling here, I'm happy that you're fine, and you look like you're
terrific.
fine. Did it make you more grateful for life?
It did. It really, really did. I always kept a grateful journal and tried to be grateful, but, I would be commenting on things and later I realized I was complaining. But, the taxi, after they got me to the hospital at Northwestern Trauma and did 4.5 hours of tests, they could find nothing wrong. Now, I don't know if your listeners know when you go into trauma ER, what that means is they cut off all your clothes. And my only thought was I wearing matching bra and panty that day? Like, oh my God, Mama was right. Mama was right.
Always have to match.
Always has to match. So, 4.5 hours later, they did every x-ray, every CAT scan, every MRI, and they all kept coming back negative to where halfway through the exam, the one doctor said to the other, has she been drinking?
Did she just pretend to be hit by a taxi?
And he said, no, there's no alcohol or drugs in her blood panel. But of course, I, being the fun person I am from the gurney, said, but I was going home to have a glass of wine because apparently I didn't want to be known as a teetotaler.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the one doctor said to the other doctor, now she owns the taxi company.
Yeah, you betcha. Or give her.
Lisa, on a more serious note, as you got into, you have an entire business that's devoted to charity work and how to generate people having an interest in giving charity, both at a corporate level and at a personal level. And you come from Michigan, so you were born in Michigan, so you have Michigan sensibilities, which I think are like kind of Midwest sensibilities. If somebody doesn't have any money, can they still give?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question, Fred. They absolutely can give. What I always say to folks is, philanthropy is just a grown-up word for sharing. It's just a big word, a big fancy word for sharing. And it could be that you share a meal. It could be you share your wrapping paper, if you have extra wrapping paper. It could be you share your extra things you have at your home. On the way here to the studio, I swung by the Salvation Army to make a donation of goods that I'm no longer using, a bar stool, an umbrella stand, things that maybe somebody else would find benefit from. You could share your smile. You could hold open the door for somebody. You could shovel their sidewalk, rake their leaves. There are so many ways that you can give back if you don't have money. If you do have money or a little bit of money, you're saying, well, I want to give something. Think about what you have in your possession. a lot of us mail holiday cards still, and we go and buy stamps. Buy a roll of stamps or a pack of stamps for your favorite nonprofit and drop it off at their place. If you're a small business owner and you order a box with reams of paper in it, buy another box and have it sent to your favorite charity because they need it for their copy machine. There's a lot of buy one, get one free. And I don't know what I'd do with 24 rolls of paper towels, let alone where I'd store them. But I could certainly call my favorite nonprofit and say, do you need paper towels or toilet paper or Kleenex or a can of coffee? Or I had a holiday party and I have extra styrofoam cups.
Yeah, there are other things, and sometimes you have to do the research. And this is where you've helped me in the past. So if we're going to be like, I was getting rid of sheets, right? Yep. One of the top sheet ripped or something. And I was like, what do I do with these? And I remember you and I talking about pet shelters. Yes. And so I had to do research, but it was the sitting down and actually thinking, okay, what can be done with this aside from putting it in a landfill?
Correct.
Because, I was like, nobody wants to buy sheets at Goodwill. That's not a thing.
No, people don't.
So there are other ways to utilize things, but you have to be creative.
You have to be creative and you have to put on your thinking cap and talk to people. I always say, we have this powerful tool that many of us rail against, social media for its negativity, but it can be a force for good. Asking people, hey, I have this left over. Who needs it? A friend of mine just moved back home to Virginia. She finished up school here, and they have that Facebook free where everybody's, giving everything away. And I often think, wouldn't it be wonderful if the world just had a giant garage sale or yard sale one day? And oh, you don't want that, but I need that. Or you don't like that, but you like this, let's trade. And I think if you put it out there and say, hey, I have extra sheets, or hey, I have this. Does anyone need it? Friend of mine just posted and she said, hey, I have this pumpkin platter I don't want anymore. And I go, I'll take it. She goes, okay, I'm bringing it to you.
And maybe you don't need it, but somebody else who does. So it's great to have the ability to utilize that. Use your powers for good, not evil. And the other thing I can tell you from a school perspective is some of those kids don't have coats. They don't have mittens. They don't have different things. And maybe you just drop those off at the school and you just say, I don't know who needs these, but in case.
Absolutely. I swung by, you'll think I had a very busy morning. I swung by Marshall's on the way here and I was looking at all their mittens and all their gloves and thinking about last minute gifts. And I thought, after the holidays, those all go on sale. And what is wrong with you going in? Most of us like to shop for those deals after the holidays, buying those and taking them to your favorite kids' school or your favorite VA hospital or your favorite, senior center that perhaps somebody there needs it. With the senior center and the VA hospital and the VA center, call ahead and ask what they need, what they're looking for, because they might have some specific things, but there is always a way to give back, especially if you have limited resources.
Lisa, do you see that people are changing, are generations changing the way that they're looking at philanthropy?
They are. Millennials are holding us more accountable.
And
congrats, Justin.
Greta, yeah.
Here we go.
Hannah, hit that bell. Good. Hit that bell for Justin.
I don't know. Ding, ding, ding.
No, but really, do you see the trend of that a younger generation how is a younger generation giving back? Is it through donations, or is it through cash donations, or is it more through services, volunteering, such?
It's more the latter, service and volunteering, because they don't have the resources financially right now. And it's still the baby boomers and the generation after them that are giving the bulk of the donations. And then when you add in planned gifts, it's even older than that. But millennials and the younger generation want experiences and they want impact. And that's what they're looking for. They also see things more on a global basis. So they are aware, look at the Time Person of the Year, Greta. She, a 16-year-old girl, not from the United States, motivated hundreds of thousands, if not millions of young people to leave school on a certain day and say, enough is enough, and have demonstrations. That's an impact. I don't know if any dollars were raised that day. I don't know if environmental groups from that group of constituents raised a lot of dollars, but they certainly raised a lot of awareness.
Mm-hmm. And it does allow the kids, students to feel empowered because they can make a difference. I know some students that my son goes to school with raise socks for homeless shelters. And they just collect socks throughout the year. They find them on clearance. They buy them. They don't care if they're not their style. And people say, I bought a 6-pack. Here's 3. Little things can make a difference.
Absolutely. There was this group of high school students in New Jersey that realized their classmates who were in foster care didn't have suitcases when they moved from home to home. They had to take their stuff in garbage bags or, the plastic bags from grocery stores and department stores. And so they raised money and they bought suitcases.
It is close to the end of the year.
Yes, it
and
is.
A lot of people want to do good and want to give back, but they also want to save money. Lisa, how do they optimize their taxes?
Well, first of all, get your charitable donations in by 11:59 p.m. on December 31st. So it has to be postmarked. If you're mailing a check-in or you're mailing in a donation, I don't recommend cash unless you're dropping it off, but you have some sort of way to track it. But it has to have a postmark that says 11:59 p.m. on December 31st. If you're doing appreciated securities or you're doing a credit card donation, you might want to back that up a few days. So think of the time between Christmas and New Year's as the time you want that transaction to happen for it to count, and have documentation. That's key. The IRS is getting stricter and stricter, even about those items that you donate to thrift stores and nonprofit stores. They're getting stricter.
Yeah, because for a while people would be like, oh, I totally donated a 75-inch color television.
That worked with the remote in the box.
It was HD. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know that happened every single year.
Absolutely.
So Lisa, when you get to the baby boomer stage of your life where you've built a corporation and you find out that you've got some real wealth, and you figure out I don't have to give all the wealth to my kids because just giving them stuff isn't always the right thing to do and isn't the best thing to do for them. Do you find that companies get that, or is it like pulling teeth to get them to be philanthropic?
Oh, people want to make a difference, Fred, especially after 9/11. Those, especially entrepreneurs that have been helped so much in their community and have built those successful companies say, what can I give to? What I find that they struggle with is where. Entrepreneurs, for example, are repayers. They want to repay back. So usually it's in the community. And I often tell them if they're confused, say you want to give, you want to have a charitable deduction because of your donation on your taxes, and you're overwhelmed. Right now, go to your community foundation. Create a donor advised fund, make the donation to your community foundation. Every community in this country, geographic area, is covered by a community foundation, and then work with the staff because they know where the real need is in that community. But if you're not on that path and you say, Lise, I'm overwhelmed, my mailbox is full and I just want to make a donation, do 3 things. 1, look at what you did last year. 2, think about where you're already giving. Most of us give to our house of worship, our alma mater, our kids' school. You probably can do 2, maybe 3 more. So don't be feeling like you have to do hundreds of them. I say give a bigger amount to a fewer number of groups, and then think what else happened this year in your family. Did a family member, did mom get breast cancer? Did your sister-in-law adopt a child? Did your brother, adopt a dog? What happened? Did somebody get a kidney disease or a heart condition? And all of a sudden that popped high up on your family's list of where your attention and your time is going. We're so good in this country right now of diagnosing illnesses, and we need the money to follow. And not everybody gets an ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. That was in the news this week because the individual who started it, he passed away. Not everybody gets that. But there are so many rare diseases, orphan diseases, and mainstream diseases that we have in our families and our community that need support.
Talk to me. Oh, go ahead, Fred.
Warren Buffett's a great example of somebody who gave more of it away than anybody else, probably except than Bill Gates. Do you find that people are doing that more and more? or that they're keeping it for themselves and just hanging on to it? Because you can't take it with you. Let's be real.
There's actually a 1933 movie called You Can't Take It With You, which I love. It's same premise. Americans last year and for the past couple of years have given away more than $1 billion a day. Last year, they gave away $427 billion. When you divide by 365 days, it's $1.16 billion every day. That's Americans. That's not counting people in Europe and Asia and Africa that give away money too. So people are giving away money and they're being very, very philanthropic and they want to make a difference. And what I often say to my clients is nobody gives away their last dollar. Even though Warren Buffett gave away $36 billion to Bill and Melinda Gates, he still has a little money left.
He has some.
So people want to make a difference. And entrepreneurs tell me in my first book that I wrote, they said to me, an unexpected response to them giving away money was they made more money. And they said that's not why they gave away money, but the more money they gave away, it seemed like that old biblical saying, if you believe in the Bible and the writings, it says, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
And
it returns to you tenfold.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It has become so easy these days, and we talked briefly with Lisa Dietlin who was our guest, about giving and how people can use social media for good. Now they're able to say, I'm raising money for a charity on Facebook. However, how much of that goes to Facebook? Is it better to skip outside those donations?
Yes.
And give the money straight to the organization?
Yes. I applaud the GoFundMe and the Facebooks and all of those entities that are helping raise the consciousness about philanthropy. What most people don't realize is the third largest employment sector in our country. 12 million people work there. But I often recommend go directly to the source so that you're not hoodwinked, you're not hijacked, you're not maybe buffaloed, any of those terms, meaning that you're giving to something and all the funds don't go there. Remember, though, that nonprofits need funding to run programs. A lot of times that people say, I want all my money to go to programs. And I say, okay, but somebody needs to run those programs and you have to understand that. Well, I don't want my money being used for overhead. And I said, well, most of us don't want our paycheck to go to our mortgage, electricity, and heat, but we realize we have to do that in order to have a home and a family life that, we're not sitting around freezing and in the dark. So be mindful, work with those nonprofits. There's 3 organizations that do really good work in vetting charities: the Better Business Bureau, Wise Giving Alliance, Charity Navigator, and GuideStar.
Lisa Dietlin, your website?
LisaDietlin.com. That's Dietlin.
Like Dietlin.
Yeah.
All right. More next week with Hannah, Fred, and Justin on Gabby Road.